Stop scrolling because the iPhone 18 Pro Max leaks just became much more interesting. Photos of alleged dummy units are spreading across X. News reports are pointing toward a physically adjustable camera aperture. Battery leaks are suggesting the biggest cell ever placed inside an iPhone, and Apple may finally shrink the dynamic island by hiding part of Face ID beneath the screen. That sounds exciting, but some of these upgrades matter much more than others, and the most important one is not the new design. Public posts have circulated alleged dummy units and speculative renders, while current reporting points to a smaller dynamic island, variable aperture camera, and significantly larger Pro Max battery. Before we start, remember that Apple has confirmed none of this. These are leaks, supply chain reports, and educated predictions, and some details could change before the expected September launch. So I'm not going to waste your time discussing every color, button, or tiny cosmetic change. Instead, we're looking at 5 upgrades that could change how the phone feels in normal, everyday use. And at the end, I'll rank all 5 from nice but unnecessary to the one feature that could genuinely justify upgrading. But first, let's talk about the change you'll notice every time you unlock the phone. Is Apple finally ready to begin removing the dynamic island, or is it simply making the same cutout slightly less annoying? The first upgrade is a smaller dynamic island. Early rumors suggested that Apple would place the entire Face ID system underneath the display, leaving only a tiny camera hole. More recent reports have pulled that expectation back. The current prediction is that Apple may hide only part of the Face ID hardware beneath the screen. That would not completely eliminate the dynamic island, but it could make it noticeably narrower. And honestly, that might be the smarter move. Apple cannot afford to make Face ID slower, less secure, or unreliable in difficult lighting just to create a cleaner screen. A gradual transition allows Apple to reduce the cutout without gambling with one of the iPhone's most frequently used features. You would gain more usable screen space, videos would feel slightly less obstructed, and the top of the phone would look more modern. But it probably will not be the all-screen iPhone shown in dramatic concept videos. Reports currently point to a narrower dynamic island created by moving only some Face ID hardware beneath the display. A smaller cutout looks better, but can an upgrade this small actually affect how you use the phone? Why the display change could matter? Here is where the smaller dynamic island becomes more interesting. Apple rarely changes hardware without eventually building software around it. A narrower island could give notifications, live activities, and background controls more room to breathe. Imagine following a delivery, controlling music, or checking a timer without the interface occupying such a wide section of the display. The difference may be small on a specification sheet, but it is something you would see hundreds of times every day. However, this is also where expectations need to stay realistic. The screen is still expected to remain around 6.9 inches, and the overall design may look very similar to the current Pro Max. So do not upgrade only because a render shows a nearly invisible camera cutout. The final phone may simply have a shorter, cleaner version of what we already have. That makes this a welcome improvement, but probably not a reason to spend Pro Max money by itself. The next upgrade could be different because instead of changing how the iPhone looks, it changes how the camera physically captures light. Variable aperture main camera. The second upgrade is the one photographers should watch: a variable aperture main camera. Current iPhones use a fixed aperture. In simple terms, the opening that lets light reach the camera sensor stays at one physical size. A variable aperture can mechanically make that opening wider or narrower. A wider setting can collect more light at night and create stronger natural background separation. A narrower setting can keep more of a scene in focus and potentially control bright highlights more effectively during daylight. This is important because it is not just another software filter. It changes the light before the image reaches the sensor. For a portrait, the phone could use one aperture. For a landscape, it could switch to another. When recording video in bright sunlight, it could have more physical control instead of depending entirely on computational processing. Multiple reports now describe variable aperture as one of the central camera upgrades being tested or prepared for the iPhone 18 Pro models. That sounds professional, but would an ordinary person actually notice the difference? Why normal users should care? You probably will not open the camera and manually choose between complicated aperture settings. That would be very un-Apple. The phone will likely make most of those decisions automatically. You point the camera, press the shutter, and the system chooses the setting it believes will produce the best result. The difference should appear in the photo itself: cleaner night shots, more natural depth, fewer overprocessed edges around hair, and potentially better control over moving subjects. Think about portrait mode today. It can create impressive background blur, but sometimes the software cuts around glasses, hair, or shoulders incorrectly. A physical aperture cannot replace computational photography, but it can give the software better information to work with. The big question is how much control Apple gives experienced users. Will it include manual aperture options in the standard camera app? Will those controls be limited to Pro Review? Or will Apple hide everything behind automatic processing? That decision could determine whether this is a serious camera upgrade or simply another invisible feature mentioned during the launch event. And the camera may be getting better, but what happens when those larger files, AI tools, and video features begin demanding much more processing power? The 2nm A20 Pro chip upgrade number 3 is the A20 Pro chip, reportedly manufactured using a 2nm process. Whenever Apple announces a new chip, we hear the same words: faster performance, better efficiency, and improved graphics. That can sound boring because modern iPhones are already fast. The more interesting part is not whether Instagram opens one fraction of a second quicker. It is what Apple can run without overheating the phone or destroying battery life. A more efficient chip could help with sustained gaming, high-resolution video processing, on-device AI, and demanding camera features. Reports also suggest that Apple could use a new packaging method called wafer-level multi-chip module packaging. The name is not important. What matters is that Apple may be able to integrate components more closely, potentially improving performance, efficiency, and thermal behavior. The A20 Pro is widely rumored to become Apple's first 2nm iPhone chip, alongside new packaging technology. But what if the A20 Pro's most important improvement is not speed at all? The chip upgrade is really about efficiency. The real benefit may be efficiency. A phone can win every benchmark and still become frustrating if it gets hot, dims the screen, or reaches 20% battery before dinner. The iPhone 18 Pro Max could combine a more efficient processor with a more efficient LTPO plus display and updated internal components. That combination matters more than one impressive performance number. It could allow the phone to process longer 4K video projects, maintain gaming performance for more than a few minutes, and run on-device AI without immediately heating up. It also creates room for future software. You may not need all of the A20 Pro's performance on launch day, but 2 or 3 years later, heavier applications and new Apple Intelligence features could use that extra headroom. This is why chip upgrades matter most to people who keep their phones for several years, not people who replace them every September. Of course, efficiency helps, but Apple may be taking a much simpler approach too, putting a genuinely enormous battery inside the Pro Max. The biggest iPhone battery, yet upgrade number 4 may be the easiest to appreciate: a larger battery. Recent leaks do not completely agree on the exact capacity. Figures ranging from approximately 5,425 to 5,567 mAh have circulated for certain Pro Max variants. Either figure would represent a meaningful increase over the previous generation. And yes, there may be a trade-off. Some reports suggest the iPhone 18 Pro Max could become thicker or heavier. Leaked dummy units have also appeared to show a larger camera area. Normally, making a phone heavier would sound like a downgrade, but many Pro Max buyers have repeatedly asked Apple to prioritize endurance instead of making the device thinner. A larger battery combined with a 2nm processor and more efficient display could create a much bigger real-world improvement than the raw capacity suggests. Current battery leaks vary by source and possible regional configuration, but they consistently point toward a substantial Pro Max capacity increase. Reports conflict on the final thickness, so that detail remains especially uncertain. Would you accept a slightly heavier phone if it reliably finished 2 demanding days, or has the Pro Max already become too large? Connectivity that uses less power. The 5th upgrade is less visible, but could affect the phone every day: its modem and wireless system. Apple is reportedly preparing its next-generation C2 modem, although leaked component information suggests some versions, especially models requiring particular millimeter wave capabilities, could continue using Qualcomm hardware. That means the modem may vary by country. The exciting part is not simply having an Apple logo on another chip. The goal would be tighter integration between the modem, processor, battery, and operating system. Cellular connectivity is one of the largest background power drains on any phone, especially when reception is weak. Even a modest efficiency improvement could add meaningful battery life during travel, navigation, or mobile hotspot use. There are also rumors involving expanded satellite connectivity, potentially going beyond emergency messaging, although the exact capabilities remain uncertain. Reports disagree about whether every region will receive Apple's C2 modem, with leaked component information suggesting a possible regional split between Apple and Qualcomm hardware. So which of these 5 features truly matters, and which one is mostly launch event decoration? Final ranking and payoff. Here is my ranking. At number 5, the smaller dynamic island. It will make the phone look cleaner, but it will not transform the experience. At number 4, the connectivity upgrade. Better efficiency and satellite features could be valuable, but much depends on your country, carrier, and the hardware Apple actually ships. At number 3, the A20 Pro. Do not expect everyday apps to suddenly feel twice as fast. Its value will come from efficiency, sustained performance, and keeping the phone capable for several years. At number 2, the larger battery. This is the upgrade almost everyone can appreciate. No learning curve, no special mode, just more time before reaching for a charger. And at number 1, the variable aperture camera. It is the most interesting upgrade because it changes the physical camera system rather than only adding another software effect. If Apple implements it properly, it could improve portraits, night photography, daylight video, and creative control at the same time. So should you wait for the iPhone 18 Pro Max? If you own an iPhone 14 Pro Max or older, these upgrades could combine into a significant jump. If you already have a recent Pro Max, the final camera results and battery testing should make the decision, not leaked renders or a new color. And now I want to know, would you choose a lighter iPhone or a heavier one that could potentially last much longer? Comment your choice below and subscribe, because when the next credible iPhone 18 leak appears, we're separating what actually matters from what is simply creating hype.